welcome to the Occulture show with your hosts, Jason Winslade and Lilith Dorsey. And right now we got our witch hats on, and that one over there looks like it's defying gravity quite a bit.
It is. Gonna defy its way off my head in a second.
And
guess what we're talking about?
Yeah, we actually got ourselves out to the theater, the movie theater, and saw this thing because everybody was like, "You gotta see it in the theater. You gotta see it in the theater." Blah blah blah. So we saw Wicked. I saw it in Iowa randomly because that's where I was for Thanksgiving weekend. You saw it in New Orleans, and yeah, it was a whole experience.
It was definitely an experience. I think seeing it in New Orleans is probably better than seeing it in Iowa. I don't, we had a whole contingent of Black witches. Like 10 people I knew just as Facebook friends were in the audience. And I was like, was that you there? I thought
So Wicked. No one mourns the wicked. Wicked is obviously based on the musical, which is based on the novel. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I saw the Wicked live show, the touring version of the musical in Chicago at the formerly known as Oriental Theater, now the Nederlander, in Chicago, which is an historic theater right next to the site of the Iroquois Theater fire, which is one of the most awful indoor fires in history, one of the most haunted places in the country, certainly in Chicago. So the Oriental, now Nederlander Theater, is also known to be very haunted, and it's got Masonic symbols on the outside. And because it used to be.
Didn't we talk about this in our Christmas episode last year, or our Yule episode?
Yes, we did. Good callback. And so it's a pretty well-known theater that's got a lot of occult history to it, and that's where I saw Wicked. And apparently, I think one of the stories is Anna Gasteyer, formerly of Saturday Night Live, was doing a show there, and she has been on all these ghost shows telling the story about seeing a ghost just walk through the wall into her dressing room, and that's just how we roll in Chicago theater. So yeah, I saw that show 20 odd years ago, and I liked it. It's really hard for me, I realized, as I've gotten older, to see musicals live because I'm so used to watching things with subtitles that watching a TV show without subtitles is challenging enough, but something on stage where I couldn't understand what anybody was singing about. I knew there was something about gravity, something about being popular. I liked the story, and I guess I was disappointed that I didn't like the music more because Stephen Schwartz wrote the music, and he wrote the music to my favorite musical of all time, Pippin. He wrote Pippin, the music for Pippin, and yeah, none of the music really grabbed me at all. And I know a lot of people just love this musical. Not so much my thing, but
we're going to be the most hated episode, really, because I didn't really love the music either. I am a classic musical fan, so I guess my favorite musical would be like Tommy, since I'm such a Ken Russell fan, or Hair or something.
We're both 70s musical type.
Yeah, definitely. And this is definitely a modern musical. There's no way to slice it.
It's very pop.
Mm-hmm.
It's very pop. From what I understand, and this is what I've talked to other people who are much more Wicked fans than I, and I think what has really made an impact on people is the way that the show was adapted. In terms of drama, and there was some controversy over this from fans in terms of aesthetics and all that, especially with Defying Gravity, which is the climax of this first part, because they filmed it in two parts, released this first part now, and defying gravity is the crowning achievement of this piece, and they break it up with dramatic scenes in between and hella special effects, so that she's singing this while she's doing flips on her broom with the green screen and all that. It's pretty amazing, actually. So there's a couple of these things, the way that the musical numbers are filmed, that are quite striking and emotional. But we'll get to that, I think, in a minute. We'll talk about some of those reactions. So we're
The
obviously,
history.
yes, we're both. So yeah, as you might know, if you've been watching us from the beginning, and I'm sure there are loyal fans out there who have done so, we you know that we are both strong Oz fans, the Ozverse, as it were. You know, going back to the I won't say the original film, because there were other Wizards of Oz films before the classic 1939, Julie Garland version, but the classic film. And I grew up reading the books. I can't remember how many of them I read. I definitely read at least through Ozma of Oz, which, again, it's such an interesting book with a trans character in the 30s, or whenever that was written. And yeah, so all the different iterations. There's been some really interesting TV shows that are tried to modernize it, make it dark. You're a big fan of The Wiz.
I love The Wiz, man. I love The Wiz.
Yeah,
Great.
I remember watching that, and loving that as well. So yeah, we have an Ozian pedigree, if you will. And we did our first one of our first episodes on the Wizard of Oz way back in 2020, when
Wow.
the world was going to hell, and so much has changed.
Yeah.
It's 2020. But yeah, so I mean, we haven't really gone into this. What does Oz as a world, as a story world, mean to you, Lilith Dorsey?
I mean, I think it's hard for me to even see Wicked as part of this, because I think what Wicked means is something very different than what The Wizard of Oz and The Wiz means. And growing up, to me, that was always, the tagline. If you ever go looking for your heart's content, don't go further than your own backyard. So for me, it was sort of a tale. Yes, it was an allegory of whatever, but it was also sort of a message where we were supposed to be thankful for what we already have, that it was not about being upset about this, that, or the other thing. There are still good things in our life that we can appreciate. That's
Right.
always what the message was for me.
And that's the framework if you're approaching it as Dorothy. And that's why I find fascinating. But when you have a world that's so rich, where you can shift the focus and the meaning completely changes because of who you're focusing on as a character. And this is obviously Elphabas, who didn't have a name in the original stories, didn't have a name in the movies. It wasn't until the Wicked novel from '95, and so they talk about how Elphaba, the name, comes from just L. Frank Baum, the initials LFB.
Oh, is that it? Okay. I
Yeah,
saw somebody saying that. I was like, what? Like,
yeah,
how? Okay.
yeah.
But
And
I
it's
also saw somebody say that this is the most successful piece of fan fiction ever. And I
ah
think that's an interesting take on it, because you're right. We are shifting into this verse that is the other characters, and I think that that's why seeing it as part of the Ozverse, yes, it is part of the Ozverse, but it's like almost begging us to reimagine it in this new way.
well, right. I mean, when you look at the figure of the wizard in when the novel was written, and then in the original movies, there's that you know lovable, somewhat of a huckster, but lovable, and represents this kind of American dream type of figure, even though there's still like socioeconomic criticism critique going on in the novels, but there's still this sort of lovable thing about him. But as attitudes towards progressive culture and capitalism and all that have evolved, he's become quite a darker figure. Now, Jeff Goldblum playing him in the movie, there's still that lovable quality because you hate to hate Jeff Goldblum, but he also does have a history of playing at the very least problematic characters, if not right villains, right? But he's so charming that you go along for the ride. Now in the
He's
book,
so flashy in this. He reminds me of that tap dancing guy from the Buffy musical, right? Like,
right, yeah, sweet.
yes, he's got like this, whatever snazzy devil kind of thing happening that I appreciate,
Yeah, and in the book, it's like the Oz in the Maguire books. It's a series. There, Oz is just dark as hell. Like the wizard is dark as hell. Like he's a murderer. He's a slaver. Like it's bad. So yeah, there's definitely this reflecting, and it's interesting. This was written in the '90s, reflecting this kind of change in attitudes, right? So yeah, but obviously the musical adapts the book, but it's tonally pretty different. Although it's funny, I remember there was something about 10 years ago, there was supposed to be a HBO series or something that was going to adapt the books, after the musical had existed, adapt the books more faithfully, with like Selma Hayek producing or something like that. And it was supposed to be like have that dark thing, and it's never got off the ground. But so now we have this movie version. So clearly, one of the big things that we want to talk about is what it means casting wise when you cast a Black woman as Elphaba under the green. And there had been some controversy over the difference between the promotional poster of the musical versus the promotional poster of the film. In the film promotion, you see Elphaba's face, where in the musical it's just that like shadow under the hat. And
it's not just that you see her face, though. She said she intentionally was staring down the camera.
Right.
So the fact that, the controversy over somebody changing it back to where she's, you can't see her eyes really is erasure, I think. I think she's made a good point about that this is in so many ways, and again, we'll get into this more, in so many ways about this erasure and how they keep erasing her. I don't want to say racism because it's really discrimination, because we're talking about someone with green skin, even though she is coated with I did put my braid in. She is coated with these braids, and she said specifically she wanted to have these braids so that Elphaba was coded not just as green, but as a Black actress playing somebody green.
Right. So yeah, that's definitely a factor. Yeah, there was a fan had redone the movie poster to make it more like the musical. I'm guessing probably without thinking of the politics of it, and it definitely got a reaction from Cynthia Erivo and the fans based on that. Controversy around that, and a lot of the promotional stuff, the social media stuff has gotten really weird with like Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo and their interviews, and like people just responding just how strange they act together when they're just and their besties.
Very weird.
Right. Right?
I mean, I saw one meme about talking about them looking like the IVF couple waiting for results. I heard some other description about like Ariana Grande's holding on to one finger. Who does this? This is so bizarre. Like, it's just weird. It's like epically weird.
Yeah, and it's funny because as I'm watching this, and you can't not, even though I didn't actually see her do it, you can't not think about Kristen Chenoweth when you're looking at this, right? And of course, Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel have cameos in, when they're in Oz, and there's a funny bit where Kristen Chenoweth is like pushing away her kind of ground in her face. So you can't not think about it, but it's like this whole thing of like, do we, is she just completely and utterly narcissistic and shallow? Is there something else going on underneath? And like, you tend to find these moments here, and even when she's being kind to Elphaba, you get the sense that, oh well, she's just doing it to make herself feel better. But yet, there's still, there are still moments, like, I gotta say, as someone, like so many people that went through bullying in high school and stuff like that, the scene in the club where, yeah, right. Elphaba very confidently comes up and just does the thing, doesn't really care how people react to it, although she kind of does. And then finally she gets mirrored and seen by Glenda, and then everybody else. That just had me bawling. I mean, that killed me, that scene. And I think that was, I think, a really great example. I know you said all that, but to me, that's a really great example of emotional storytelling.
It was a beautiful scene.
Through choreography. I mean, nothing more than choreography. There was no dialogue or anything in that, no singing. It was just through choreography. And man, that scene delivered.
No, it was amazing. I thought that all the way through. I thought the choreography was amazing. And that scene, you're right, the expression through dance is amazing. That the sort of symbiosis that they have between the two of them, this meeting of minds. And it really, I mean, there's such intimacy in that moment, which I guess is why we now watch them with the finger and the strange relationship that they have, and bully for them. I'm happy for them, but I think for me that to go back to the music, I wanted the music to be better. Just the dancing was insanely fantastic to me, and the sets and the costumes and all of that was fantastic. And other than Defying Gravity, I couldn't really tell you any of them numbers right now.
Right.
They
needed
some help.
In your head.
No.
Again, there will be masses of people who will disagree with us, and
sure,
they live, breathe, and eat this music. But yeah, it just doesn't stick to my. I mean, like, to me, the Buffy musical stuck in my head more than.
Yeah, I still have that in my head right now. I could do all the numbers.
Right? Like, yeah, I mean, the Witch's Road song, even, like, I was thinking we should do it like a split screen of that great, part at the end where Elphaba does the cape swirl, because Agatha does something similar in one of the scenes.
Yeah.
The cape swirling scenes side by side. I mean, this isn't really, this really kind of is a season of the witch right now, and they even put both of them together on the magazine that had them on a cover all together.
Mm-hmm, I saw that. But no, I mean, this is already going to be our least favorite episode for everybody, because this is not our favorite thing ever, and it should be. We're witches, right? Like, we're professional witches, and this is what we're saying about this property that everybody loves. But I'll remember those elbows. I said to my best friend, I'm going to go for the rest of our lives, I'm going to go wicked elbows, and we're going to do this at each other.
Every time I'm carrying a book, I'm like, doing the book choreography. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of over Bowen Yang at this point. Like, I hate to say it, but it's just like he's just kind of everywhere now, and
yeah. I mean, he did what he was supposed to, be annoying and sort of typecast almost in that kind of stereotypical way,
Although it's funny, I don't know if you noticed, I'm pretty sure that everybody at that school is bi. Like,
sure.
Like,
oh yeah,
there's not a straight person that in the school.
Definitely.
I thought that was cute, and I love that the Munchkins aren't dwarves, they're gingers, because why not?
Well, it's the outsider, right? Like, that's what this is all about. You asked me what I thought it was all about. This is about, the othering of individuals, and how that goes to an extreme length. I did see, there's all this criticism now about, like, it's race, all these whatever far right wing people are saying it's racist against white people and it's anti-white people and all of this, which I think is interesting commentary for them to have.
Yeah, I don't really get that, but I mean, I know it's definitely interesting that like in the Munchkin world, right? That there is, yeah, there's definitely a class difference there, and um, you have, yeah, you the mayor of Munchkin Land who's got for Munchkin Land having that kind of privilege. Then he's married to a black woman who cheats on him with another white man of privilege, and so there's and like you know but then of course in the book and then in the musical it's all about the animals, right? That the animals are being silenced, they're being literally they're being put in cages for the first time, and you got Peter Dinklage as the goat. I always thought Peter Dinklage was the goat, but
Fantastic.
but
Love
yeah
Peter Dinklage.
but yeah, that's the message that the animals are the underprivileged class that someone has to speak for, and Elphaba decides that she's the one to do that, um, and she gets she recruits Fierro into her little thing, and that's going to come up a
Spoilers.
lot, right? That's going to come up a lot in the part two and all that. So there's definitely it's definitely meant to be sociopolitical. It's definitely meant to be a critique of fascism in a lot of ways. Very very on the nose right now. So you can't. I mean, Wicca is you can't see that. You can be all caught up in the emotions of it all, or the Ozness and the fashion and all the dresses and all that, but you can't escape that it's a political message.
Sure.
So whether or not it nails that landing, I can't say yet. Obviously, we're in a 2-year intermission for Act 2 of the movie. But what about, let's see, the magic aspect? There's a little bit of magic in there. I find it funny that like in Oz that we know from the books and everything like that, it's like there's just magic everywhere, all kinds of stuff. In this version, it's a pretty mundane setting. It's all the only thing is that the animals talk, really, and so they have this book that no one can read, that's got all these magical spells in it, and it turns out that the wizard can't even read it, and they're basically they're looking for this magical person who Elphaba turns out to be, basically to exploit her, right? Basically to have her run these things for them, to like if you've got somebody who can use magic, let's have her under our control, right? And so there's a lot of like that. She reads the book, and it's almost like the infernal names that like that kind of like.
Yeah, but I feel like she's not only being exploited by that. I feel like she's also being exploited by the book itself. Like the book doesn't manifest and have her do some sort of fantastic spell where she's free from these people. The spell makes it worse, which I think is a very important lesson of magic. I think that was an interesting twist, right? She has all the power. She has all the knowledge. She's literally the most powerful person in Oz. And yet, with the most powerful book in Oz, she can't manifest a simple, easy, happy ending for herself, no matter what, So I think that that's an important message that they've got in there, that magic is not a solution, no matter, even if you do have all the magic in the world, like you're still not necessarily going to be able to manifest the situation that you want, or the situation that's right or fair, to bring back into the socio-political, commentary.
Yeah,
she messes up the animals with the spell.
Right. Yeah, it's like messed up and traumatic, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's like no wonder that the winged monkeys are pissed off, But yeah, that's a great perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way. That the book practically has agency over, the magic in itself is in a lot of ways, the colonizing power, right?
It is, and I think that so much of her identity goes into this, whether she wants it to or not, right? Like it's almost her protector, her defender, whenever anybody's being mean or bullying her or something's going wrong, like the magic happens, right?
Yeah.
So in this crucial, critical moment, yes, she's granted the broom and she can get out of there and all of that, but yet it still betrays her. You know what I mean? All it does is give her an egress. And I guess we'll see in chapter 2 how it plays out. But it doesn't, it's not like nobody's kumbaya and holding paw to hand at the end of this thing.
Well, I guess maybe the point is that that this was always her destiny, and the book sort of helped push her there. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, there's yeah.
I don't know. That just seems so. I want to see her as this sort of female empowerment hero. And I think so many, I told you it was almost the all black sister showing of Wicked when I went the other day. And I think for so many of those people, I saw somebody on Thanksgiving, she's like, Alphaba sister. There really is this sort of black sisterhood that's trying to embrace this performance of Alphaba. And as we can, own our own power, own our own magic, not be affected too badly by, those that want to other us and criticize us and hold us back. And I really am not so sure that's the message it gives us.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it sort of hits things on the nose that, I mean, whether or not it empowers Elphaba, it's sort of that scene where she just says the line, "You have no real power, do you?" And then right there, it's like, oh yeah, of course. And because it's always been the illusion of the man behind the curtain. And it's funny how that phrase is so much a part of our socio-political parlance that comes from this book. That clearly that they don't have the power. There's this sense that she does, but as you say, does she really?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I
there's
want
a
it
lot.
to be that. I totally want it to be that, but that's not what I saw really, Even when we look at Glinda betraying her in the very, you know what I mean? It's just like the one friend that she had. Her sister's already all out for herself, so she goes off with the monkeys. I guess she makes peace with them eventually, but she really seems very lonely in that moment when she's leaving to me.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, and of course there's also in the way that they did Defying Gravity, where she's falling and she sees her younger self, who reaches out her hand, and like that was a huge moment too. And I know several people had responses to that about like for that whole thing about integrating that child's self and that child that has been rejected, or that child who has been ultimately disempowered, but that's ironically where you get that power from. There's all kinds of layers there, which is why that sequence is so important. I think it is really a strong choice, a good idea to end it where they did for that, for that act break, if you will, because that is all about making those choices to then finally claim that power. Now, from what I understand, is that part 2 is about the consequences, as part 2s usually are. Um, but yeah, I'm I will see part 2 when it comes out, and like I said, I had a great time. I enjoyed myself. Is it my favorite Oz property? Probably not. It's almost like that. Like Oz is this sort of like essence that you can't really get. Like there's all these like various versions of it, and of course the movie's a classic, the 1939 movie is a classic, but yet like when I look at the movie and I put that against my knowledge of the books, I'm like, it doesn't really do the story justice at all either. So I don't know where
When does an adaptation ever do the story justice? I think
I
that's
mean,
just a given.
there are some, sure. I mean, there are some good definitive versions, I think, of some adaptations, but it still feels like there's lots missing from everything. Probably one of the best that I had seen is not a movie at all, but it's a comic book, the Marvel Comics version of of the Oz. I think they did at least 7 or 8 books in graphic novel form, and I got them.
Okay.
I got them from my daughter when she was younger, and I remember reading them, and it was the only adaptation that I ever saw that had the whole thing with the Emerald City, where it's not made of emerald, it's just a regular drab city, but they make sure everybody puts on the emerald goggles when they go in, so that they think it's,
Great.
which is a fantastic metaphor, for capitalism and all that,
Sure.
that Baum put in there. No one has ever touched it except for this Marvel Comics adaptation with the great art by Scotty Young, who's done. I think she's the one that did the Little Endless, the version of Sandman with the little almost cartoon characters that for Jill Thompson's little story. But yeah, it's very sort of whimsical in the drawings, but also steampunk and creepy, and so
okay.
yeah, that's one of my favorite Oz adaptations. But
I mean, I liked it too. Don't get me wrong. I had a good time. It was fun. I left with the elbows, and and anxiously awaiting 2 years when I get to see this new one. Hopefully.
So yeah, gravity has been defied. Put the hat back on for the.
I was like, I'm not putting this back on. I will hold up my hat. Here's my hat.
So we have mourned the wicked, and gravity has been defied, and that's our take on it. You might disagree with us heartily, or or not. But it is a huge phenomenon. I mean, it's like it's already grossed like what, $350 million.
What? Oh my gosh!
It's already made back twice its budget in just a few weeks.
Wow.
It's a phenomenon for sure. So we couldn't not address it.
Okay.
So there you have it on the Pop Culture Show.
We'll be back.
We'll be back. Join us next time for the final episode of 2024 for Pop Culture. I'm your host, Jason Winslade. This is
I'm your other host, Lilith Dorsey. Please continue to comment, like, share, join the Patreon, all of those things. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, all of those things. We really appreciate it, especially this holiday season when things are a struggle bus.
Yep. Yeah, we'll try to get more of that Patreon content on there, www.patreon.com/popcultureshow, and have a great holiday season. I'm at Krampus candle on. We just had Krampus knocked last night, and the season is going strong. So we'll see you next time, Pop Culture Show.
Bye.